In this video, I'll show you how to make this wooden playset complete with a tractor, a wagon with hay bales, some cows, and a fence. You'll have as much fun making it as the kids will playing with it. I purchased the plans from toymakingplans.com, and you can see what they look like here. Their plans are downloadable, so you can print the plans and patterns and be in your workshop within minutes. The tractor body plan calls for 1.5 inch thick material. Normally I would use 6-quarter poplar for this, but I didn't have any in stock, and my hardwood supplier is an hour's drive away. I had some 1x6 cedar in stock, so I decided to use that since I'm going to paint the tractor anyway. I had to work around the knots, which wastes a lot of wood. This is why I work almost exclusively with hardwoods. There are a number of ways to attach patterns to wood. In fact, I recorded a video showing 9 different methods I use. I'll leave a link to it so you can check it out later. Since this is a small pattern being attached to a small piece of wood, the method that made the most sense here is a glue stick. These are inexpensive and available anywhere you can find school supplies. The glue holds the pattern in place while you cut, but the paper comes off without too much trouble when you're done. You'll need to drill the 5/16 and 7/16 holes for the axles to the tractor body. I used my drill press, but you can use a hand drill. Just be careful to drill 90 degrees so the wheels are even and level. You'll also need to drill a pilot hole for where the window cutout will be. This is a big enough space you can use the 5/16 drill since it's already in place. It's better to drill this hole for the axle peg that will couple the tractor to the wagon before you cut the tractor. This way eliminates the possibility of tear out if you perform the step later in the process. If you've ever spent time making a part only to have it ruined later when you drill a hole and the bit wandered, you'll know exactly why this is the best time for this step. I had a number 9 blade in the Pegasus scroll saw, but even though the tractor bodies are soft material, I switched to a number 12 Pegasus modified diameter blade. I keep an assortment of blades on hand in sizes 3 through 12 because I use wood from 1/4 to 1.5 inch thick. For the tractor, I'll make the inside cut for the window first. The wood was not perfectly flat, so it made cutting the tractor a little more interesting, but not a big problem. You can probably see the wood rocking a bit on the saw table. This was another reminder to me to stick with hardwoods and to prepare them properly before getting to this step. If you haven't worked with thick material on the scroll saw, I'll pass along a trick I learned the hard way. Cutting is a little slow even with a number 12 blade, so you'll likely be tempted to speed up the process by putting greater pressure on the blade. Don't do it. Scroll saw blades, even in number 12, are small and flex easily. If you put too much pressure on the blade, you're likely to get an uneven cut where the edge doesn't maintain a 90-degree angle to the faces of the stock. You can also cause the blade to overheat, causing the wood to burn or the blade to break. You can see where I drilled the hole for the axle peg that will connect the tractor to the wagon at the beginning of this cut. There are a couple of reasons this is a good idea. The first is to prevent tear out, which is more likely to happen when there's not a lot of material surrounding the hole. The second is that I'm not sure if you cut the tractor outline first that there would be enough clearance for the drill's chuck between the back of the tractor cab and where the hole needs to be drilled. There's the tractor, and you can see where the hole is for the connecting peg there. The body of the wagon also calls for 1.5 inch thick material, so I'll have to go back to that piece of cedar again. The nice part about working with cedar is that it smells good. I went back to the drill press and drilled the hole for the hitch pin to go through, as well as the holes for the 2 axles for the wagon. Once again, I just used a glue stick to attach the pattern to the wood. This is an easy piece to cut, just some curves and straight lines. Just keep in mind my cutting tip for thick wood. I cut the miscellaneous pieces, the fenders for the trailer, the wagon bed, the fence sections, and the hay bales. There was nothing particularly interesting to show for any of those cuts. Now I have the cows and calves left to cut. I had a bunch of small pieces of 1/2 inch oak that were perfect for the calves. I switched to a number 7 Pegasus modified geometry blade for these. The patterns for the adult cows called for 3/4 inch thick material, so I found a piece of oak to make these. I used a board about 6 inches wide and 30 inches long because I needed to lay out the pattern for 8 of these. Remember, I'm making 2 complete sets. I used scroll saw tape to attach these to the wood. In case you aren't familiar with scroll saw tape or some of the other methods to attach patterns to wood, I'll leave a link to my video showing 9 methods to attach patterns to wood. I switched to a number 9 Vegas modified geometry blade to cut these. I know from experience that whenever you glue fenders to a vehicle, you should have the wheels handy to make sure you place the fenders correctly. More than once I've eyeballed parts placement, and after the glue dried, I found out my aim was off and the wheel wouldn't turn properly. I set this assembly aside to let the glue dry, and then I'll flip it over and attach the fender to the other side. For the wagon, you just need to attach the flatbed to the bottom assembly. I drew a mark across the piece so I could know where to stop applying glue. I used a glue bottle with a small tip to apply the glue, then I used my finger to spread it around. I used white glue, which is water soluble and dries clear, plus I will be painting over it. I used a clamp in the middle of each wagon assembly to hold the 2 pieces together. In my experience, I've found it to be especially important to firmly clamp 1/4 inch thick pieces. The glue adds moisture and the wood wants to warp, so you need a way to hold it in place while the glue dries. This is also the reason I only put glue on the thicker the 2 pieces, since it is less likely to warp. There are several pieces to the set, but none of the cuts are too difficult for a beginner on the scroll saw. You'll need to purchase some wheels for the tractor and wagon. My source for these is Cherry Tree Toys, and I'll give you a link to their website in the description. This is fun to build, and I'm sure any child who receives this as a gift will have hours of imaginative playtime with it. I'd love to hear from you and respond to all comments as quickly as possible. If you're ready for more, be sure to watch the suggested video showing on your screen.